Quick look at what happened in 2020, the last election, the closest election Bihar has ever seen. Remember, the NDA won with 125 out of 243 seats, just above the majority. India Alliance not far behind with 110, others 8. But when you look at vote share, there was an identical vote share of the NDA and the India Alliance. In fact, the actual margin in terms of votes was just over 12,700 votes. It was as close as that in an election with over 8 crore voters. Therefore, my big question is 2025 likely to be as close as 2020? That's the first question I want to put to my pollsters. Start with you, Pradeep Gupta. Will 2025 be 2020 redux, or is this a very different election in your view?
Definitely, Rajdeep, it is going to be the different election altogether, and the reason is very simple. One or two basic reasons then and now. Last time LJP contest separately and secured 6% votes. 37% secured by NDA minus LJP, meaning all put together. If you see in that context, it was 43%. Though it may not add 100%, but by and large. And if you go by the seat share, what you can see, what we have seen, 125 seats NDA won last time, that would have been 158 seats, because LJP dented the prospect of JDU in particular, because they've contested mainly against JDU. So NDA would have secured 158 seats had the LJP was the part of NDA alliance. This time they are contesting all put together.
Right.
And another big change was the VIP Sahani contested with the NDA, and this time they are on the other side, which is the Mahagathbandhan. This is the last time story. Now, this time what had changed? This time they are contesting together. That's the one point. Second, the SIR took place. So it is interesting to see this time what would be the voter turnout. Mind you, more than 20 lakhs people who has died has been removed. Similar to this, about 14 lakhs people who have permanently migrated out of Bihar has been deleted, and about 21 lakhs voters has been added. So this time it will be important to see what would be the voter turnout, because traditionally in Bihar in last 20 years, the voter turnout has been in the 55, 56, 57 percentage point, as against India. If you take the India average, about 63 to 65% voter turnout. So this will be another thing. Now in Bihar, another difference is there when it comes to women, particularly, though women total elected number is few lakhs lesser than the male. But when it comes to the turnout, the 100 vote cast, 55 goes to female, 55% turnout for the female, and 45% turnout for the male. I mean, this is the 10 percentage points big gap it turned out to be when it comes to the Bihar. So these are the few important
You're making important points, Pradeep. You're saying Bihar is among the few states, if not among the only big states, where women voter turnout is higher than men. That's partly because there's a large migrant voter who lives outside Bihar. Number two, importantly, just for our viewers, Lok Jan Shakti, or LJP as Pradeep referred to it, is the party of Chirag Paswan. It fought on its own last time, primarily against Nitish Kumar JDU. This time it's part of the NDA alliance. And Mukesh Sahni's Vikashsheel Insan party was with the NDA. This time it is with the Mahagathbandhan, but it is a smaller party. So in that sense, Pradeep is hinting, and I will ask him his final number at the end, but he's clearly hinting that in a way the alliance arithmetic has changed in Bihar to some extent to the favor of the NDA, with the LJP on the same side. The woman voter we'll come to in a moment. To you, Yashwant Deshmukh, do you believe 2025 likely to be as close as 2020? Will lightning strike twice?
Rajdeep, it all depends on the turnout of the female voters. As simple as that. If the female voter turnout will be more than the male, it is going to be advantage NDA. If it is the other way around, it is going to be advantage Mahagathbandhan. So this
But
election,
just to point out, Yashwant, in the last election, the women voters voted roughly equally for both the alliances. There was no major shift towards one alliance in 2020.
yes, in our discussion, when we were discussing our tracker number last time, Rajdeep, I did mention that this election, our data is showing probably the highest degree of gender skew in terms of voting perception and their preference for chief ministerial candidate. So the gap of the female voters' voting intent between the two major alliances is huge. They are overwhelmingly favoring the NDA, but among the male, it is just the other way around. Even though it is not that kind of overwhelming in favor of Mahagathbandhan, but Mahagathbandhan holds the key, holds the sway as far as the male voters are concerned.
Right.
So yes, there would be a direct correlation, not just about the female turnout and how the NDA performs and like that, but as Pradeep just mentioned, the gap between the male and female turnout, just like you remember in Delhi, that even if female turnout would have been very high, it would have at best brought the electoral participation at par with the male, because in male voters are almost like 6% points more than the female voters in the electorate size. So that's where the Anka Ganit, as we call it, gets skewed, because it's not just about how much female, if the females are voting more than men, but by what degree are they outperforming men?
Right.
That is going to be a very, very critical issue.
Okay. Sandeep Shastri, your first response. Are we going to see a razor-thin context given the fact that you have relatively two strong alliances in place? Or do you believe much has changed, much water has flowed under the Ganga in Bihar in the last 5 years?
Rajdeep, my own sense is it would be a razor-thin contest. Has much changed since 2020? Yes, a lot has changed since 2020. And for me, the most important thing that I would look out for is the fact that 1 out of every 4 voters in Bihar is a youth in the age group of 18 to 30. This age group, I think, is going to be critical in this election. This age group cuts across all the 3 other variables we talk about. It cuts across caste arithmetic, it cuts across alliance chemistry, it cuts across gender sociology. All the 3 are impacted by this youth factor. And let's also remember, Rajdeep, that this 18 to 30 age group has been socialized in the last 2 decades, when largely, irrespective of alliance, Nitish Kumar has been in power except for a brief period of 6 to 7 months. So they have seen largely a Nitish government, be it with the NDA, be it with the Gathbandhan. And I feel this is going to be a crucial factor. I have often argued you may see a anti-incumbent government move, while you may also see a pro-NDA flutter, and I believe both are possible.
So you're interestingly adding a new dimension. So far, I heard Pradeep and Yashwant focus on Mahila or women. You brought in the Yuva or youth. In fact, I'm going to draw my next question to also add Yuva to that. But Amitabh Tiwari, your first response, because 2020 was a remarkable election. It was also an election, I might point out, fought in the backdrop of COVID. Which we sometimes forget. So there was a lot of distress, especially rural distress, that could have translated into anti-incumbency and even anger. Bihar has traditionally seen one party sweep the election. 2010, Nitish Kumar swept the election with the BJP. 2015, it was Nitish and Lalu. In 2025, could we see a replay of 2020 or more likely 2015 where one side pulls ahead?
Yeah. So whether it will be a replay of 2020 or it will be a one-sided mandate largely depends upon 5 factors. Clearly, the adjusted vote share, as Pradeep ji also mentioned, you have to add LJP and RLM. So the adjusted vote share of NDA is around 44%. But 2% declines because VIP has moved towards the Mahagathbandhan. So it becomes 42 versus 39%. So there is a 3% lead. Now, if you see, there are 5 factors. One is the vote transfer between various alliance partners. The vote transfer between JDU and BJP was weak or one of the weakest in 2020 election if you compare different political parties and the alliance partners. Second is the damage done by Jan Suraj Party. Who does it damage more? That would perhaps also define whether it's a close election or a one-sided election. If you see the caste matrix of Jan Suraj Party, it has fielded 87 upper caste candidates and 52 Muslim and Yadav candidates. So it seems, just going by the social group or the composition of the Jan Suraj Party, it may damage the NDA more if you just go by the social. Then, of course, we have the turnout of the women. There is a scheme, 10,000 rupees scheme, which has impacted around 35% women voters, and it impacts almost half of the vote base because there has, if you multiply it by 3, because number of voters in any household is around 3. So what is the turnout of this women voter base? Do they turn out in large numbers to back the JDU or the NDA? Do the Muslim Yadav Mahila vote also turn up in some numbers towards the NDA? Is the turnout of women higher than men by the same thing? Because you also have a fact that a higher number of women have been deleted as voters versus men. That is number one. And this a high number of migrants have come back and are likely to stay and vote. So that might reduce the gap of the women turnout of 5%. The fourth, of course, is the youth factor, which Sandeep ji has mentioned, because it transcends across caste lines. If it consolidates towards one particular alliance, which is the Mahagathbandhan, then you can see a closer contest. If it gets diverted between Mahagathbandhan and Jan Suraj Party, then you can have an advantage to the NDA in terms of the vote margins. And these 4 are likely to be the key points which would decide whether it is close or not. And the last is the battles. Congress party is fighting 50 of its 60 seats against BJP and JDU. And LJP, HUM and RLM are fighting most of their contests against RJP. So how do these two parties or two key blocks perform in the alliances also defines whether it's likely to be a close or a one-sided.
Okay, interesting.